You either love him or you hate him. Donald Trump. Fame, controversy, power, and endless headlines. He's a figure who dominates the conversation, no matter what. But what does the universe have to say about him? In this video, we're diving deep into his birth chart to uncover the cosmic forces that shaped one of the most polarizing figures of our time. Buckle up. This just isn't astrology. It's a front row seat to understanding Donald Trump like never before. All right, everybody, I'm going to reshoot this video. So we're going to look at Donald Trump's chart here. So we're going to start out with his Gemini sun. As you see, it makes a rolling stellium here with the North Node and Uranus in Gemini in the 10th house. So I'm just going to go one by one and introduce these energies individually. Then we'll combine them and see where it goes. So what's the sun? The sun, once again, is about your overarching ego, kind of everything you need to become, a culmination of all these energies here and what you need to show the world. It shows your leadership and how you express yourself and your creativity and even your romantic side. And a lot of times with the sun being in Gemini, it's about multiplicity. It's about media, communication, intellect, speaking. Whether you accept it or not, I don't like it much, but I accepted that Donald Trump is the 47th and 45th president of the United States. So he's in the limelight. He is in the house of career. The 10th house is about public recognition, your reputation, how others view you, how others see you, and how you want to see and show yourself into the world. So with the sun being Gemini in the 10th house, it's very media driven. You want to be in the media. With a 10th house sun that's very strong, you want to be in charge. You want to have everybody looking at you and be the center of attention. It's also about media and cameras and things like that. So he's on TV. He was on The Apprentice. And of course, he's constantly on Twitter and sharing information and running his mouth all day long. So people see him as a leader, but they also see him as two-faced, because Gemini, like I said, is the sign of multiplicity. It is a mutable energy, so it's all over the place. It's also about his romance. He's a known cheater. And I guess he may even have an affinity for younger people, because Gemini also represents youth and folly and things like that, and siblings. It matches his two-faced demeanor. A lot of Geminis, and not all of them, they have a two-faced in one way. May not necessarily be a bad way. Maybe they just have this alter ego that lies inside of them, but it is stereotypically known for liars and cheats and things like that. And Donald Trump's case, that is exactly what he does. He is a compulsive liar and a narcissist. Oh yeah, I don't like Trump either. So if this is going to hurt your feelings, you might want to tune off now. If not, like, share, and subscribe. I'd appreciate it. And if you also like this, I do birth chart readings. You could find it in the description down below at www.nicholsastrology.com. Next, we're going to look at Donald Trump's moon, which is down here in the 4th house in Sagittarius, and it's conjunct his south node. So a moon in Sagittarius. So they're adventurous. They like being right. They like having one dogma and following through with it, and everybody else's truth is not the truth. So they're strongly opinionated, pig-headed in a lot of ways. They're about religion and philosophy and things like that. And you can see it's making an opposition to Donald Trump's sun. It's also very in the 4th house, so that's in the sign that the moon does rule. Not it does rule the 4th house, and that is about security and safety and your emotions and your heritage and where you come from and things like that. It's interesting that his sun and moon are making opposition. They're both conjunct the nodes there simultaneously, which we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Okay, we're going to look at Donald Trump's ascendant here, which is 29 degrees Leo, at the very ass end of Leo, almost going into Virgo. And most famously, it is conjunct Leo Mars, that's in the 12th house. Donald Trump, a lot of people with Leo rising, they have a lion-like appearance. Maybe like you can look at Donald Trump's orange spray tan complexion. It kind of looks orangish, yellowish, golden color like a lion. His hair looks a bit like a lion's mane. So these people are very, look at me, want to be in the spotlight, like public attention and things like that. They don't like being behind the scenes. They like being up front. They're very loud, warm, and gregarious, but they can also be very arrogant and domineering and controlling, especially with that Mars there on the ascendant, which we'll talk about more in a second. But now we're going to go back into planets. We're going to look at Donald Trump's Mercury in Cancer in the 11th house. So with just looking at this alone, we're going to have to look at it with other aspects, of course. This would implement somebody who is very soft-spoken to the group and to the community, who is very sweet and caring and keeps his words very nice. But that really doesn't seem the case for Donald Trump. So we're going to have to explore this a little bit more, because Cancer is ruled by the moon, as we talked about down here in the 4th house. Donald Trump isn't that. He's none of that, really. I'm sure this Mars on his ascendant makes a huge difference, but we know that he's very volatile. He struggles with telling the truth. He will say anything just to get the limelight on him. He'll say anything to get elected. And yeah, there's not a lot of truth telling or sweetness or something with him. So we see that it is making a square over here. Looks like it's going directly to Chiron, but there's a Venus and Neptune conjunction here. So I think that Neptune is definitely the delusions of grandeur that he has. He believes his own lies. I think he lies so much that he just convinced that they're true and he can't tell a lie. So we'll explore that a little bit more, but that's the gist of Donald Trump's interesting Mercury placement there. Let's jump over here to Venus, which is in the same house and the same sign. He has Venus in Cancer in the 11th house. Again, this is a very soft, tender spot for Venus, but I think Venus would agree more being in Cancer than Mercury being in Cancer. That's probably not a great sign for Mercury to be in. So he would make him very friendly, very outgoing, very organized with the group, but very nurturing, kind of like a mother-like figure with his group of people. Kind of makes you wonder, is this something that, oh, but it is a conjunct Saturn there, so that makes a lot of sense with that. It's not making conjunction to his Mercury. I have to say that's too far away, but there's definitely a conjunction between Venus and Saturn here in the 11th house in Cancer. So that's going to make him a little bit more harder and a little bit more rigid, and probably going to repress his emotions. He wants to keep face in front of the camera, and I guess you can count his community as, I don't know, other billionaires. Maybe he has a lot more sympathy for other billionaires, and he's going to help them get rich, because he's definitely hurting us down and what's left of the middle class and the lower class. He's trying to make people a lot more poor with these tariffs, and seems like things were going good for a while and prices were going down, but he is so full of himself, he don't want to admit that these tariffs are a terrible idea, and he can never admit that he's wrong. I think we are going to see the downfall of that eventually. So he wants to control relationships and he wants to be in charge. Maybe he wants to be nurtured. He wants other people to nurture him. So that's that Saturn conjunction there with Venus, going to make it a lot harder and a lot more controlling of others in relationships. And he wants to be the lead in the group because he has his 10th house sun over here. We already mentioned his Mars a little bit, but it is Leo in the 12th house, making a pretty tight conjunction of 3 degrees to his Leo rising. So that's having a hard time expressing itself. The 12th house isn't very online with Mars's fire, aggressive, impulsive energy, but this to Leo on his ascendant definitely does. Maybe his impatience and his temper gets him in trouble. Ideally, it should get him in trouble. He has 34 felonies and never served any time. If I was a convicted felon of 34 felonies, I'd be in prison probably the rest of my life, but not people like Donald Trump, unfortunately. This is going to make him take charge. This is going to make him want to stand out, take action, very attention seeking. Look at me. He'll do anything to get in the limelight, and it is making a trine over here to his moon as well. So this kind of thing makes him very happy. So he wants to take action. He wants to be in charge. It's very about creative and speaking and everything like that. So look at me. Now we're going to go to Jupiter over here in Libra, and it is, you can see right here, stationary. That's meaning that's either slowing down to either go retrograde, or it was a retrograde, and it is slowing down to go stationary, and it's going to go direct again. So when people are born during a stationary period, like you can see right here, Neptune, we're going to get to a little bit more. We already talked about that, is retrograde, meaning it goes backwards and the energies are inverted or reversed in a way. But once it's stationary, that means it's in a very, from what I understand, like a very strong spot where it's going to start either having momentum again, or it's going to start going retrograde. And you can see this stellium here in the 2nd house, including Chiron, Neptune, and Jupiter. They're making a square over here to that Mercury, but they're making a trine over here to his Sun, North Node, Uranus stellium. So Jupiter is about luck, expansion, prosperity, growth, wealth, higher education, being right, higher learning, things like that, and traveling. So having in the second house, which is the house of values and things that are valuable personally, often people with Jupiter here have a tremendous amount of wealth. And I say Jupiter being stationary there is giving more power to that wealth. And it's also making a conjunction to Neptune and making a conjunction to Chiron. So that's giving it the flavor of maybe he's holding on to his wealth because maybe in a past life he was poor, possibly, or maybe he was very wealthy and very greedy and very domineering. It's also about your self-esteem there. So this makes a lot of sense, actually, the stellium. I know a lot of his followers won't agree with this, and that's fine. We are allowed to agree and disagree with one another and not hate each other. So if you hate me for it, that's fine. But it's also about your self-esteem and your confidence. So this is going to boost his confidence. This is Jupiter here. It makes things bigger. So he's going to have a very large fortune. He's going to have a very large pool of self-esteem. But I think this is the narcissism, because a lot of times people when they're narcissistic, such as Donald Trump, they may have got their financial needs met, but maybe they didn't get their emotional and psychological needs met growing up. So maybe growing up he was rich because his dad was rich, of course. He was born into that. So maybe he's that spoiled child archetype, and you can see that he never grew up. But I think with him being conjunct Neptune, he's just going to come up with this idea that he's just this greatest person alive. He has these delusions of grandeur because that's what Neptune represents. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a few. But yeah, so I think this is giving him a over healthy amount of self-esteem and a very large fortune. Let's go back to Saturn. We spoke about that a little bit, making that conjunction over here to Venus in the 11th house in Cancer. So this would be a very soft, watery place for Saturn, and that's not very, that energy doesn't jive very well with Saturn. It is an Earth sign, of course, the ruler of Capricorn and the 10th house. So it is going to make him very stoic and very reserved and very controlling of others, making that conjunction there with Venus. So what he needs to do is not seek power and not seek admiration and not seek the glory from being in a group and not having others admonish him. He needs to be a strong, stoic figure that is a good representation. He needs to be a role model. He needs to be that mentor, elder energy that he's lacking. He's almost an 80-year-old man and he acts like a 5-year-old child, in my opinion. I know he has a strong following and there's no denying that. I think his followers get a kick of him acting like a toddler every time he doesn't get his way. But then again, we look at the left and they're not a whole lot better. I'm not really left or I'm not really right. I'm neutral. But I can see the folly of both ways and how it's all going downhill. Okay, let's go look at his Uranus here, which we talked about a bit already in the 10th house in Gemini. And it is making that conjunction here with his moon and his south node. So what does that mean? He has to be different. He has to defy the authority figures because the 10th house is about authority. So he's the one that has to come in and get the power, but he's going to do it his own way. And he's going to do it a different way. He's not going to be the traditional president that's kissing babies and shaking hands and passing these policies that are predictable the party wants him to. He's going to be the maverick. He's going to be the outlier, the iconoclast. He's going to challenge people's beliefs. Like we have the left kind of taking over things and media and stuff like that. And he comes in and says, no, we're not doing it that way. But he takes things to the other extreme, the hard extreme. So I think two sides are too extreme. I'm trying to keep this neutral, but I can't. I'm not either side. I'm not a fan of either side. I can get along with people on the left. I can get along with people on the right. They usually just can't get along with me because I have my own opinion and I don't drink the red Kool-Aid or I don't drink the blue Kool-Aid. Hell, maybe I'll mix them together and make purple Kool-Aid and drink it. Who knows? But he's going to be very defiant against people and authority figures and a criminal. He's a known criminal. He has 34 felonies, like we said. He may be involved with the Epstein case, which he wants to keep hush. So there's probably a lot of more skeletons in his closet. But what good is it going to do? I think everybody's done everything to get him out of office besides the ASSASS word. I mean, there's already, 2 or 3 attempts. So I guess we'll have to keep our eyes peeled for the future of those possibilities happening. Let's touch a little bit more on his Neptune. I think it is a huge thing in his chart. because it is creating these delusions. Maybe he's not as rich as he thinks he is. Maybe he's not really as powerful and secure as he thinks he is. He just wants us to believe that. So again, this is in the second house in Libra. So he wants to look good in front of other people. He wants to be idolized and worshiped because it is about one-on-one relationships and things like that. So he wants to look powerful. So he makes these lies because that's what Neptune is about, delusions and lies and illusionment and psychosis and things like that. And the second house is about your self-worth. So with Jupiter, they're going to make him very big. These very big lies. He's going to tell so many lies, he probably can't keep the truth and the lies separated. He probably gave up on that a long time ago, and everything that comes out of his mouth is true. And if you ask his followers, he's right. But anybody with half a brain will see that both sides are very cult-like, and a very large percentage of our U.S. population is enamored with one side or the other. And yeah, very dangerous, scary times. Let's look at his Pluto, which we haven't mentioned yet. It's in the 12th house in Leo. So he is a boomer generation, of course. So Pluto's about death and transportation and power and control and domination and things of that nature. It's about transmuting the bad from the good. And it is in the house of troubles here, and it is in Leo, like I said. So everybody born around the boomer generation obviously has Pluto in Leo. But where our house is very unique. So there is no major aspects to Pluto in the chart. I would say there's a semi-sextile between Pluto and Mercury over here. But in the 12th house, we already talked about Leo a little bit. That's about creativity and romance and showing yourself and needing to be in the spotlight and being admired and loved and everything like that. And Pluto. So I think this is his, because every narcissist deep down has a very low self-esteem. They put on an act just to show everybody that they are really great, but deep down they know that they aren't as great as they would like to be. And I think Donald Trump here actually deep down, somewhere down there, maybe with years and decades of delusions and these thoughts and these lies that he's built himself up with, there's a very shallow, fragile man that puts on this big, grand appearance with Leo rising with the Mars conjunction there. But he may have some very dark sexual habits that he's keeping hidden, because this is the house of what remains undisclosed. So maybe there's more sex crimes. We know that he's a sex offender that is president. That's a crazy thing to say, but I guess we did have Bill Clinton after all. So it's not a huge surprise, but maybe the Epstein files have a lot more dirt on him and a lot more to uncover. And maybe, who knows, there's no telling what atrocities he has done in the past and what he may do in the future, but there's definitely a lot going on underneath that is very dark and secretive and hidden that we don't know about. We may never know about it, or maybe we will know about it and we just won't care because nothing is getting done with what he's done so far. Also, I want to do a synastry video in the future. I just want to see some interest, so give this video a thumbs up if you want to see a synastry between Donald Trump and Adolf Hitler. Donald Trump does notoriously get accused of being very Hitler-esque, so I guess we can compare their two charts and compare and contrast to see how he may or may not be the reincarnation of Hitler. Who knows? Because Hitler died sometime in 1944, and he was born July 14th, 1946. New York City, New York at 10:54 a.m. I forgot to mention at the front of the video. But go ahead and let me know in the comments if you would like to see that. Also, if you have any questions about Donald Trump's chart, or maybe you have some similarities, don't worry. We all have similarities of charts around various people. Like I have a lot of similarities with Adolf Hitler and Jeffrey Dahmer. You can also watch those videos in the playlist as well. But let's go look at some of this extra stuff. We talked about Chiron a bit already. It's smack in the middle between the Neptune and Jupiter conjunction here in this stellium, if you will, in the second house in Libra. So there's a wound with him in relationships about him staying in the graces of trends and public admiration. So maybe people look down on him, or maybe he feels like people look down on him when he was younger or in a past life, or maybe he felt that he wasn't good enough. We were talking about him possibly being the reincarnate of Adolf Hitler, and Adolf Hitler had a Libra rising. So maybe that is a clue towards past inflictions of that nature, but we can't say that for sure, of course. But Chiron is the wound where you need to heal in yourself and you need a mentor in helping others. So I think with Donald Trump, it's very financial and about self-esteem, but instead of helping others get rich, maybe he helps other people stay filthy rich, like other billionaires, cutting their taxes and getting them a lot of breaks at the little guys like you and me are starving and trying to make ends meet, but he is definitely not healing this wound of wealth. So maybe he was poor at one time, or maybe his wealth is affecting him adversely. Maybe him being rich is just feeling this narcissism. So I think the narcissism is his chironic wound here, because Libra is about the status quo, what's trending, what's hot, what's going to make everybody get along. And he just doesn't really have that in him. It's all about me. He has this very selfish, toddler-esque, high chair tyrant archetype there going on. So he needs to get past these delusions of grandeur and kind of help other people who may just be enamored by their fortune and their power, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen at the age of almost 80 here. So wishful thinking here. So I just noticed this looking at his houses. So we're looking here at the 5th house. We see that Capricorn is intercepted by the 5th house. So if there's a 5th house interception, we got to go across the pond here and look at the 11th house. And we can see that Cancer is intercepted here. So this explains a lot. I do think he's an ENTJ for my typology folks still working here. So I think this kind of hides his soft-spoken nature. He doesn't have anything in the 5th house, so there's going to be less of an emphasis there, but we will talk about that here in a minute. But we talked about his Mercury and Cancer not making a lot of sense, and with the house interception, that makes a lot more sense now, because he has trouble expressing this soft Cancer emotional energy. So he keeps his emotions to himself. He probably feels that he's emotional weak. So when he's in front of the group and he's in front of the left house community and all that, he saves face. The Saturn energy, I'm sure, shines, but it is also making this opposition over here to the 5th house, which Capricorn. So just to talk about that a little bit, this 5th house is about romance and creativity and expressing yourself and children and things like that. And it's interesting that Capricorn here is hidden. That would not be a very romantic sign. I think Sagittarius would be a lot more romantic and spontaneous and creative than Capricorn would be, but maybe he lacks that commitment. He lacks that solidarity to be a dad. He lacks that solidarity to show himself in the world in a very concrete way. So he's very fickle and very finicky. And he keeps his emotions hidden. He keeps his doubts and his 2nd house stuff going on here. His negative image on himself taken away and hidden here. So I think that does explain that Mercury and that Venus not making sense. The Venus makes a lot more sense because of the Saturn conjunction, but the Mercury, not so much. Maybe a little bit with this square. We'll talk a little more about the aspects here in a bit, but I wanted to point that out. Now we're going to talk about his south node a little bit. Of course, we have the north node making an opposition over here, and he has an interesting thing going on here because he has some pretty tight conjunctions with a lot of interesting energy. The south node is in Sagittarius. I have this combination myself, except my Sagittarius south node's over here, and my north node's over here in the 8th house in Gemini. But Sagittarian south nodes, including myself, they can be very stubborn in their opinions. They think that they're correct all the time. They may be stuck in their dogma, their religion, their philosophy, their spiritual outlooks. Maybe they're type of person who chases degrees and look at me, I got these credentials behind my name. It can also make you very secretive and hoard knowledge and not want to share knowledge and keep it up here. Also about foreigners and things like that, foreign nations and traveling overseas and long distance travels and foreign people, foreign languages, foreign cultures. And it's making a conjunction here to the moon. So the ruler of Sagittarius, of course, is Jupiter, where these delusions of grandeur and misfortune and things are. So Sagittarius represents things that are foreign, but the 4th house, where his south node lies, represents home, his own heritage, his own safety and security, and his family lineage and where he comes from. So he's noted to be racist. So maybe there's some racist connotations here. He loves America. He loves everybody who lives in America, except if you have the wrong color of skin. But he hates things that are very foreign. So maybe keeping these ideals makes him very happy. keeping these immigration policies. Like I said, the left took it way, way too far, letting every immigrant in the country without any kind of discernment. He does the opposite and deports everybody he can see and gets ICE going in people's jobs and wrecking people's lives and wrecking people's families and deporting people that are just here stimulating the economy. But we need to focus on the drug dealers and things like that. But it's a lot like the war on terrorism. How do you discern a terrorist from a non-terrorist? They have the ideology of their own and very Sagittarian themselves, and they lay hidden and deep. But I think he has some very deep-rooted opinions that he keeps to himself and doesn't maybe say outright, because we got this Jupiter here, which I think is very vocal, and maybe he keeps this to himself, but maybe he knows how to take this hatred of other foreign cultures and foreign people and covers it up with these lies and covers it up with these delusions. I think he's really good at that. He placates things. It's a lot like a cult leader. When you first get initiated with a cult, they bombard you with love and admiration and all this stuff, and they make you feel included and make you feel wanted, but they slowly take that away from you. Then they slowly give you these extreme beliefs, feed you these ideas, and they gaslight you and makes these really strange thoughts and normal. But this usually takes things over a long period of time. It's not like Hitler just got elected in Nazi Germany and started rounding up Jews and gassing them. Hitler kind of came into office in the 30s, 1930s, and was spreading this propaganda that they're evil. All the ills of the world are to blame on the Jews. God doesn't want them and he wants them dead and all this sort of thing. And initially he wanted to deport them, but he wanted to deport them in Madagascar, but the British patrolled that island. It's an island off Africa, in case you didn't know. You thought it was just some stupid movie. But he wanted to port them there, and he also wanted to port the Jews somewhere in Siberia, but the Russians controlled that area, and that was a no-go zone for him. So what did Hitler do? He rounded them up and gassed them and almost eliminated a whole race and religion of people. I think maybe Donald Trump has these things, but he has to tread a little bit lightly. He has to go a little bit slower because things are a little bit different than they are in Nazi Germany. I should say they're a lot different. Hitler didn't have access to Twitter. Hitler wasn't on camera 24/7 like he is now. He was on camera and he was a public figure, obviously, but we just didn't have the media capabilities we do now. So Trump is under a lot more scrutiny and a lot more observation compared to what Hitler was. And we have the internet, where we still have a large aspect of freedom of speech there, and people can form any and every opinion, thought possible. So it's a double-edged sword. Anybody and everybody can think of their own philosophy and start their own cult, start their own movement, or what have you. But then again, everybody believes anything and they just want to belong in a tribe. And it's so easy to get caught up in the mix and get caught up in these strange fantasies that people like Donald Trump portray. Let's take a look at his North Node, which we already mentioned is Gemini in the 10th house. So in a lot of ways, he is following his career path. He is following his nodal story, I guess you could say. He's supposed to be doing it with more compassion and more empathy, but he has this Mercury in Cancer, which is the ruler of his Gemini North Node. And it's in the intercepted house, which we talked about. So he's not able to express this Mercury in a very soft, sincere way. He's not talking about his emotions. And this is like a group therapy Mercury, in my opinion. You go with 11th house with a community, a group of people you associate with. And you talk about peace and love and your emotions and how things make you feel and empathy and kindness for others. But with the 11th house intercepting that, we only get this Gemini energy and we get this Leo energy over here. So he's having a hard time getting there in the way that he needs to. He's doing it because he is in charge. He is the most powerful man in the world. You may argue or may not argue that, but as far as we know, with our knowledge, he's the most powerful man in the world. He's in front of the TV all the time. He's giving speeches. He got shot in the ear, supposedly, while giving a speech. He is this public figure, but he's not humble. He's not empathetic. He's not docile. He's very brash. He's very controlling. He's very manipulative. So he's carrying this Gemini manipulative traits, but he really needs to show the Cancerian traits, which it looks like he's almost 80 and he's just not going to do. He's already set in his ways. Maybe something will happen where he changes his tune. I'd be very surprised if he did. while we're on the nodes, let's talk about this stellium a little bit more. So the sun is there and it's supporting that. So he has no problem getting over this awkwardness because the north node is what you're not really good at. It's what feels awkward and what feels strange. And these are things that you carry over from lifetime to lifetime. If you don't want to look at it that way, it's just things that you're naturally good at but are holding you back. And this is kind of like what you need to practice and what you need to implement in your psyche in order to feel fulfilled and break these lessons and break these habits and go more towards your north node tendencies. So I think his sun there in Gemini in the 10th house, which is a pretty strong sun in my opinion, it's helping him reach this north node need of being in charge and being this media figure and making speeches. He even wrote a book. I'm sure someone wrote it for him. I forgot what it's called. But anyways, he also has Uranus there, so he needs to do it in a very Uranian way. It needs to be very different. It can't be like anybody else. He has to be Donald Trump. There will never be another Donald Trump in a million years, for the better and for the worse, probably for a lot more better, that one day we'll see the end of Donald Trump's life one way or another, unless Neuralink or whatever these things preserves his consciousness for the rest of time. And maybe we'll have a dictator for the rest of eternity, and maybe it'll be Donald Trump. Maybe like Futurama, where the jars are in the head and he's controlling the country that way. Who knows? But I think the sun is just shining and over dominating this Mercury over here in Cancer, and it's just not coming out the way that it wants to be. It's very Uranian, very up yours. I'm going to do things my way. I'm going to defy you. I'm the iconoclast. I'm going to challenge your beliefs. I am the new president, and we're going to do things my way. I think he's holding on a lot of this baggage here, and it's going up there. And this probably makes him very happy. This probably makes him very satisfied. He likes probing and prodding people. He likes being the center of attention and pissing people off. I think that gives him power, and people are boycotting him and having these rallies and things like that. It just makes him stronger. All the left and that are going out in the middle of the heat, because I live in Tucson, it'd be like 110 degrees and they're out there picketing Donald Trump for one reason or another. It just gives him power. It's not doing anything to stop him. Anything, you're feeding his narcissism. He craves the attention. It's what he wants. It's what he's going to get, and that's what you're giving him. So I think you guys are making the fatal error of making him more powerful and making him more narcissistic, because it's just feeding his self-worth over here, because this is the ruler of it, and it's the ruler of the south node, seeing that it's in Sagittarius, and it's also making him very happy and fulfilled, and he likes pissing people off. As you can see, the north node moon combination down here is making a quincunx, this dotted green line right here. Looks like a little picnic table over here to Saturn and the Venus conjunction. So what a quincunx is a 150-degree aspect. It's something that's irritating and hard to manage and hard to get right. It requires constant adjustment. So he's wanting to control people. He's wanting to get power. He's wanting to dominate others with his way, with his idealism. He wants this MAGA stuff, this Make America Great Again, this red. It's making this quincunx over here to how he relates with people. Some people it works on, some people it doesn't. He has to constantly adjust. He has to constantly make up these new lies. This could be like something that he just completely made up, the Sagittarian energy. This is something that is just totally false, but he wants to perpetrate it as the truth. He also wants to control people, obviously, and he does control a lot of people. And he doesn't want to be very nice, because that Cancer energy we talked about is intercepted over here. So he has to keep adjusting the lies. He can't make his followers question him. He has to make up these new lies that cover up the loopholes and the other lies, but everybody's so brainwashed, it doesn't really matter. So he's able to control people. He's able to control masses, but he has to keep it going and keep up the charade and come up with something new. So he's making a sun-moon opposition here, which is interesting. So it's like his ego versus his emotions. So his emotions, he's so caught up in this narcissistic second house over here, this big stellium where his fortune and his self-worth lies. It rules over it, and it just makes him very happy being stuck here. But his ego, where he needs to be, and like Cancer energy, it makes him, it's like his emotions are against his ego. This is like what he needs to become, but this is kind of holding him back. This troll energy here, this fire troll energy with all this stuff where he's making these big stories and making all this stuff about him and perpetrating all these lies, is holding him back from him being his true empathetic, loving himself. He can be a great leader. He has a capacity to seek this. I think this is his Achilles tendon right here. This is kind of what would be something to make him a better person, a better leader. Maybe he'll have some near-death experience where he changes. Maybe it'd be like the Christmas story with Ebenezer Scrooge, where he's this greedy person who holds all this wealth like Donald Trump, but at the end he gets visited by the spirits and he changes his tune and becomes more loving and giving. Maybe that story will happen with Donald Trump, but I doubt it. Look at this. It's also making a sextile here to this Jupiter, so it's just incorporating more of this. It just flows here. This, oh, I love myself. I'm so great. Look how much money I have. I'm right because I'm rich. I am a billionaire a few times over, and I am great. And you have to follow me, and you have to believe everything I say. So that is just making that more conducive. And it's also making a trine to the south node. So what trines the south node, or what trines one node? This fueled his political campaign. He was rich. He already had a bunch of supporters. He had a bunch of backers. His wealth, his stories, his delusions of grandeur, making everybody believe he's the greatest thing to ever walk on the earth, the second coming of Christ. And that kind of fueled his sun, fueled his north node, and fueled his mission. So yeah, he got it lucky there, didn't he? We talked about this a little bit. This is making a square. That stellium over here in the second house with Jupiter, Chiron, and Neptune in Libra is also making a square over here to the Mercury. We talked about a little bit in the beginning of the video. So this is the intercepted sign of Cancer in the 11th house is not able to come out. So maybe he didn't receive that empathy growing up as a kid, and that's squaring that. That is squaring the ruler of his south node there, and it's making him keep all this narcissistic energy within. He's so full of himself and everything like that that he can't get this out, and that's squaring his Mercury. And he puts his foot in his mouth. He gets caught in lies all the time. He can't keep up the charade with everybody. Not everybody believes he is the second coming of Christ, so that kind of puts his foot in his mouth. Also, you can see a sextile between the Venus-Saturn conjunction up here in the 11th house in Cancer, which is intercepted, making a sextile over here to his Taurus midheaven, which we didn't talk about the other angles. We only talked about the ascendant. So the midheaven is the cusp of the 10th house. And in Donald Trump's case, it is Taurus. So this is somebody who slowly accumulates wealth over many years, which Donald Trump has done. He's done it through people, obviously, and controlling people and dominating people, because the Venus Saturn sextile here is supporting that. So he gets his wealth through other people. Like he borrowed $1 million from his dad way back when, and he turned it into however million or $1 billion fortune he has these days. So he didn't do it alone. So it was a very group project. He has his group of investors. He has his group of other billionaires. He has his group of backers, financial backers. He has his stocks. He has his portfolios. He has his real estate Mongols and all this stuff. So his wealth and his public, he didn't get there himself. He was boosted by the group. He was boosted by other people, and it wasn't done in a very nice way. I'm taking it. We also got a trine between his south node and moon over here in the 4th house in Sagittarius, trining his Mars over here, which is conjunct his Leo ascendant. So his go get it forward energy, his presenting himself in the world very aggressively in a very showmanship way, is being propelled by his south node, which again, we got to go back to the second house here with his delusions of grandeur, his over confidence, his arrogance, his narcissism, whatever you want to call it, and his fortune. So he's able to go forward in the world because he has this inflated amount of self-esteem, and his Mars is just, let's go get it. I don't care if it's in the 12th house here, the house of troubles, the house of mental illness, the house of low confidence. He believes it. He's going to go forward with it. He presents himself, his brand, and he wears it on his sleeve, and he just goes for it, and nothing's going to stop him. But of course, this aggressive banter, this aggressive image that he has of himself, this lion that's like rabid and just going through the gazelle almost to the point of extinction, and is killing other lions and is killing other animals, and it's making a square also to his midheaven over here in Taurus. So while his assertive nature gets him very far in life, it's also hurting his public image in a lot of ways. He has a lot of opposition and a lot of people going against that. And maybe he feels like he's not good enough, and he has to show himself to the world where he's rich and he's dominant and he's powerful and stuff like that. So when you have that attitude, you're going to rub a lot of people the wrong way and you're going to make a lot of enemies. And we also have a sextile from this Mars Ascendant combination going over here to his Sun, North Node, Uranus combination over here in the 10th house in Gemini. So again, his assertion, his domination, everything like that is fueling his public image. He sports his tacky looking hairstyle, his spray tan and everything like that's a part of his image. That's a part of his brand. It's all done with intention. It's not accident. He just doesn't have bad fashion taste. He looks tacky and he looks dumb because people know him for that. They make fun of his hair. They make fun of his orange Cheeto dust complexion. It's a part of his brand, and that just makes it the way it is. I think that's all I got. Do you have any comments you would like to make on Donald Trump? Do you agree with me, disagree with me? Are you one of his followers? Are you one of his adversaries? Are you in the far left? Let me know in the comments. Also, like, share, and subscribe this video, and let me know if you want to see the Hitler Trump synastry chart. Thank you for watching.